Ladies, do you know what your fifth vital sign is? Do you even know what the main event of your period is? Do you know what are actually healthy symptoms of a period are? Should you have any symptoms? What about how birth control actually works? Do you understand how that works and has an effect on your body and on your mind? Well, join me today with my friend Jen Winkler. She's a board certified health and wellness master coach with Primal Health. She's a functional blood chemistry specialist. She is a femme practitioner, and she is amazing. She took me and my daughter through her kind of like group coaching last fall and taught us all about the fifth vital sign and blew our minds away. I didn't realize how important and significant it was to understand every single day of my cycle and how it affects every single part of my life and how I can understand my body on a whole nother level. She's pretty phenomenal. Listen in. I love how seriously you take the fifth vital sign, and I really would love all of my female friends and students to take your course and learn from you and your amazing wisdom. You took my daughter and me through kind of like we were kind of some practice clients last year, and you taught us so much. And I wish I knew 25, 30 years ago when I was first starting my cycle, what you just taught me last year. But I mean, I guess better late than never, right?
No, totally. Even like as we approach our perimenopausal years and stuff, it's still really helpful to know.
Yeah. So I was wondering if you could maybe share a little bit of your story and just how you came to working with women and fertility and hormone coaching and all that beautiful jazz.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks for having me on. Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things where as you go along, you eventually start discovering what your specific niche is that you love. And for me, I think it was 2021, somewhere in there. I could look back at my certificate and see where it is. But so 2018 actually is where I started low carb ketogenic. I started low carb not realizing it was low carb until later. I was just feeling like, hey, let's take out all the junk foods and the processed stuff. I have epilepsy and I was maxed out on my meds and I was overweight, PCOS, not sleeping well, insomnia, panic attacks, mental health issues, like you name it, I had it. So I figured, okay, I'm sure food plays a role. I just didn't know enough back then on exactly which foods. I just knew let's get rid of sugars. So I got rid of sugars and processed foods and started feeling better. Wasn't quite there yet. And then I learned about ketogenic. So I said, okay, let's do this. I heard it's for epilepsy. I have epilepsy. Let's try it. And my husband joined in and he actually saw improvement sooner than me in his colitis. Within 5 weeks, his flare up was gone and he stopped taking medications per his own thing. Obviously, always talk to your doctor, but that's not my husband.
Isn't that
So
frustrating though, when you and your husband start something? I don't know. I mean, it's just the same thing with me and my husband. We will both start a health journey and he heals and loses weight or recovers so much faster than me. And it is the most frustrating thing in the world.
yeah, and that's because we're so complicated with our hormones. We have so many more facets than they have. So then that plays a big role in it too. But yeah, it was right away. For me, my case, it was more because I was targeting my epilepsy and that I wasn't having seizures, but a lot of the symptoms I was having was a side effect of the medication, and that just takes time to titrate down. So that was my situation. I did feel better. I was sleeping better. I was starting to lose weight. So as so long, fast forward, I lost over 80 pounds, sleeping better, energetic, skin is better, all kinds of stuff. So a lot of friends and family were asking what I was doing. And I said, I'm doing the keto diet, but I'm doing a real one, not just like throw all the cheese on your food. Like I'm doing it legit with avocados and vegetables and berries and meats and
That clean keto, is that what that is?
yeah, isn't it crazy we have to call it that though? Like, why is it when we say keto, people automatically think bacon and cheese? And it's like, I have that, but that's not the bulk of my diet. Like, I had scrambled eggs with mushrooms and onions and bacon this morning. But yeah, anyways. So I realized this can be a job where I can help people learn how to do this properly if it's for them. And I like, even in the beginning, there were people that came to me and I said, you know what, I don't know if this is something that'll actually help you. And that's been one hallmark of my business that I promised myself is I'm never going to take on a client and make them waste their money just because they want to do keto. I will tell them, hey, if ketogenic will work for you, great. But some clients have had to say, I think you might do better on more carbs. Let's just learn how to eat properly for you, like if they do CrossFit and stuff. Anyways, so I got certified for that as a primal health coach, as well as a master health coach. And then, like many of us in the health coaching sphere, took course after course because I get this new addiction of learning and I'm just always fascinated by the stuff that I learn. And so then I did functional blood chemistry and being able to read blood labs. So one other thing too, I forgot to mention was when my son was around 1 year old, my husband and I took a course together to learn how to teach a method called symptothermal method. And it's a natural family planning method. And we together were teaching other engaged couples in our area how to do this in preparation for marriage. So that was my initial introduction into all the hormone stuff. And that method, so that's not the one I took you through, it's a different one. And that one is very thorough and very informative. And I love it, but it's long. It is also very long and has a lot of details the woman has to take care of. So it's more complex. But for the woman who's like, I absolutely cannot get pregnant and doesn't want to use contraception, symptothermal is a fantastic one. Yes. So that was my initial, and I just started loving more and more how my hormones were balancing out, things were getting better. And when I decided to try and niche down in my coaching, I was always focused on insulin resistance and some PCOS as well, since that's what I had. And then I thought, how cool would it be to combine the two of my coaching? Because women would come in and start giving me symptoms. Let me just say that. So they would come in, give me symptoms, and I'd say, well, where are you in your cycle? And I said, well, my period was like this many days ago. Or my cycle is only 3 days long. And I said, no, honey, your period is 3 days long, but cycle is longer than that. So just help. I realized that was the missing piece in my coaching, was to help women learn how to chart their cycle. And then we can adjust different factors according to where they are. And so I had my first round with that and it went wonderfully. Even these women who even had a good amount of knowledge still learned some extra things that can help maybe their progesterone support in their luteal phase. Why are they getting the cravings? What can they do to fix that? All those kind of things. So yeah, I finally found that sweet spot with the charting plus the coaching and just helping that hormonal balance.
Isn't that fun? What is one of the most memorable wins that you've had with a client and just like using that method?
So using like the FEM method, or I didn't mention that part, but or just the coaching.
Just working with them and coaching them in learning their cycle.
Yeah. I would say my favorite is when they come to me wanting to get pregnant and then they're able to have that dream baby. And I've had a number of clients that's the case. Sometimes it's while we're working together. Sometimes it's a couple months afterwards and they send me the pregnancy test. And then one of them, even it was literally 2 months into working together. She's like, whoa, I'm already pregnant. And I was like, congratulations. I don't normally do this, but with her, I said, you have a couple options. Like, I'm not going to make you finish paying, all these months when you're pregnant, or if you want, I can help you adjust this through your pregnancy. So that's what she chose. And that was really cool because she's had gestational diabetes before, and this time she did not. And we were able to adjust a way of eating. Yeah, because she had just started keto and then she had food aversions and all kinds of stuff. And then seeing that baby born, and it was just like so precious. So I think that's definitely one of my favorites for sure, is bringing life into the world.
Yes, that has to be the most rewarding thing ever when someone comes to you and help me get pregnant who hasn't been able to, and seeing that baby. Sorry, I'm getting all the warm fuzzies over here.
Totally. I'm sure you get it. It's just so, yeah, it's a totally different beast. Because here's the other thing is some women will say, well, I can't afford the coaching. for that. And the difference is like, how much would you have spent doing IVF or any other fertility treatments? I mean, my husband and I have secondary infertility, and we've been digging for a while trying to figure out, and we've just realized this is just God's plan for us right now, and that's okay because there's no explanation of as to what's going on. It's a journey with these women. Like when we're able to see them have that baby, and it's been a struggle, it's just beautiful to see that struggle overcome.
So, what is something that helps you? Because I can imagine the conflict of emotions dealing with secondary infertility and then watching all these clients be successful and have babies, being coached by you, that I can only imagine the confliction of emotions and having to hold multiple emotions in your hands at the same time. So like, how do you process that? How do you do that?
No one's ever asked that. That's a good question. I will admit at first it was kind of difficult. The first couple women who got pregnant, I'm like, man, like why isn't it working for me? And I mean, I did know the reason. It was mainly on my husband's side. His fertility was struggling. So once we got him tested, it was like, oh, okay, that's why. But even still, we did all the things for him and it still didn't work. So when those clients, so at first it was rough, but now it's come to a point. It just, I have a very deep relationship with my religion, with my faith, with God, and I felt him continuously calling me to himself and to just trust in him. And I actually had this discussion, not necessarily with the coaching part, but just the struggle of infertility in general. I talked to my priest, and I copied his text message on, it's like right here in front of me to remember all the time. And he said, in times like these, it is best to just trust and keep faith in God. If he is good, then what remains for us is to simply ask him, okay, Lord, now how do you want me to serve you? I had my plan of serving you, but it must be different. So how can I serve you now? And that right there has taken me through the past couple years of just asking him, what do you want me to do for you? And in the midst of this coaching, I believe that's where I'm fulfilling his will, is helping these women to not just get pregnant, but feel better in their own skin. And so they can go out and enjoy time with family and friends. And so, I mean, obviously that's not my primary vocation. Primary vocation is a mom and a wife, but that is a big part of it. That's how I get through. It's really by his grace, because even friends, other people I see get pregnant online, and it's just like, wow, what a blessing. Like, and they're good people. They're good people that are going to raise their children in wonderful homes. And that's what I pray for, are good, holy families. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. Wow. What wisdom. What to just transition your mindset and say, how can I serve you with what I have now? That's really beautiful. That's powerful. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, okay, what are some reasons why a young teenage girl should learn her cycle? Like what are like kind of do a little sales pitch to my teenage 16-year-old girls that I'm teaching every day, that I'm trying to convince that they need to do this. Like what are the benefits of learning your cycle? Why is this so important?
Yeah.
Not just
No,
to
that's
get pregnant, obviously. I mean,
right. No, and it's not just to not get pregnant either, because you can use it to avoid pregnancy. It's so important. So when we track our cycle, and let me give some definitions as well. So when I say cycle, what I'm saying is from day one of bleeding, bright red bleeding, up until the day before of your next bleed. That is your actual cycle. Okay. So a lot of women, I don't know about teenagers, I haven't spoken to them as often, but a lot of women will say, oh, my cycle is 5 days long. I was saying that earlier. So it's not just about the period. A lot of women see their period as their main event. However, when we track our cycles, we start learning that it's ovulation. That's the main event. Ovulation dictates how we feel, how our hormones are balanced, how much progesterone we release, if we release any, so if ovulation is not working optimally, then it'll reflect in the period, and you will see it in that period and that menses. So as to why it's important is our hormones are chemical messengers that communicate to the cells and the organs throughout our body. And hormones are responsible for many, many different things. And I should clarify sex hormones because insulin's a hormone, thyroid's a hormone, vitamin D's a hormone, all these things are hormones. So when I'm speaking hormones right now, I'm specifically speaking of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Now, those are all on a cyclical basis for women. And if they ever become imbalanced to each other, we will feel it somehow in our bodies. Our hormones are like a symphony. So if you're listening to a symphony, an orchestra, and if one instrument is slightly off, you can tell. But when they're going smoothly together, it is beautiful. So with our hormones, we know what's happening. If we're more tired than usual, if we're more hungry than usual, if we're more irritable than usual, if our breasts hurt, like all kinds of things will give us signals to things being off. So when a teenager or a woman or anyone learns to track her cycle, what she's learning is how to read the biomarkers of her body, that her body is giving her symptoms as well as things like cervical mucus or temperature. And she is learning where her hormones are at. And so, for an example, when our fertile window starts opening and ovulation is about to approach, a woman will observe cervical mucus due to rising estrogen. When she goes to the bathroom, she'll observe it there. If a woman does not observe any at all, we can deem that her estrogen is either too high or too low, one or the other. And then that can give us a little bit more of a signal as to when she should get her blood work checked as well, all these different symptoms, because our hormones are doing this throughout the cycle, you can't just go and get them checked anytime. There's specific times to get them checked. So it's really giving her power over her own body. You know, we hear a lot about that, like my body, my choice. It really is giving her autonomy on her body to understand what's going on and to give her power to talk to her doctor and say, this is how I feel. And I learned about this aspect with women's hormones. And to me, this is kind of what's happening. And some doctors are really receptive to that because they only have 10 to 12 minutes with us. It's hard to think through all the problems and figure out where they should go. And if they say, oh, yeah, that actually makes sense, sure, then they can help you as well.
Okay, so learning and understanding your cycle helps you understand different symptoms. So what would be the benefit of what would be the benefit of knowing if your estrogen's too high or too low? Like, why would that be even an issue to begin with?
Good question. So estrogen, if it's too low, let's start with the too low and too high, both of them together. If they're too high or too low, estrogen, actually, let me rephrase this. After you bleed, follicle stimulating hormone begins to rise. That's FSH. What FSH is doing is it's communicating from your brain to your ovary to grow follicles. The follicles house the eggs. So once the follicles start growing, the ovary then communicates to the brain and says, no more FSH. Now we need estrogen. So estrogen is being released from the ovary, from the follicles themselves to continue to grow. And as estrogen rises, that's what causes the cervical mucus to be produced. And that's where we can notice that the estrogen's rising, we're going into our fertile window. Now, estrogen will rise and peak and start coming down. Right as it starts coming down, that's the signal ovaries give to the brain to say, hey, it's time to release the egg. And so the brain then there's a lot of communication back and forth, the brain and the reproductive system. So then the brain signals to the ovaries to release LH, which is luteinizing hormone. And then that is what triggers the egg to be released out of the follicle. And then the follicle then becomes what's called a corpus luteum, a yellow body, and that produces progesterone. So our hormones, estrogen's like this. And then when estrogen comes in the luteal phase, it's a little second bump, but progesterone is the dominant one in the luteal phase. Now, with that basic 101 education, it's easier to explain that if estrogen is too high or too low, you will most likely not ovulate. It'll be anovulatory is what they call it, or it may be even longer and later. And if you don't ovulate, you don't get the progesterone. Progesterone is so important. It's very important for calming, anti-anxiety, prevents the uterine growth. So estrogen, one of its responsibilities is to grow the endometrial lining. So if a female has very heavy periods, very painful periods, breast tenderness, a lot of times those are the high estrogen. The receptors are getting overwhelmed, and it's as far as the breast tenderness, but the uterine lining keeps growing, and it's going to keep growing until either one, you ovulate and progesterone stops it from growing because it'll suppress the estrogen, or two, if you get a withdrawal bleed. And that's an interesting one with some women is they think they're getting a period, but it's really just an estrogen withdrawal bleed. So yeah, it's that one blew my mind when I learned it. Because then I thought, I wonder
So
if
it's
that was
not
maybe
really a real period because it doesn't contain an egg. Is that what defines a real period? One that is actually
yeah.
releasing
So
the
so
egg?
the so the terminology is true menses, and for a true menses or real period, you have to have ovulated. So not necessarily that you have an egg there because the egg usually dissolves if it's not fertilized, but that you had at least
Ovulatory event.
an ovulatory event, yes. So when you're tracking your cycle, you can see that that's happening. And if you do the method like that I brought you through, which is FEM, we can see that with the peak day of cervical mucus and how long your luteal phase is afterwards, which we want at least, by my standards, is at least 10 days long. So we can tell that too. Like if you have short luteal phase, that can be a problem. In future, having children in the future, it can be a problem with anxiety, so that's another thing. I don't know if you come across this with your teenagers, but ones that do have anxiety, depression, and they just get put on an SSRI. Well, it may be menstrual irregularity and you may not have enough progesterone, and that might be the problem. And if that is the problem, the SSRI actually makes it worse.
How does an SSRI make it worse?
I wish I could get into the details of the
It
mechanism.
just does. We're just gonna say it
But
just does.
yeah, I wish I
It's
I
just
wish
a
I could.
chemical. It just messes everything up.
Yeah, it has to do with the serotonin and the neurotransmitters. That's the part. I honestly, when I listened to the talk from this doctor, I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. But it's one of those you have to listen to over and over in order to repeat it yourself.
Understand the
But I
full
know,
technicality.
yeah, because an SSRI is a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So it's messing with the neurotransmitters, the serotonin, the GABA, the dopamine, all that stuff. And progesterone is what's needed. So I've heard you actually need the opposite because progesterone helps to calm. It's a calming one. So I mean, it's obviously every teenager's different. Some of them very well may need something like, but then that gets into a whole nother rabbit hole of do we actually need SSRI?
Another
Yeah,
topic.
yeah, I'll keep that one another time.
Okay, so hot topic in my house. You won't believe what I just did this last weekend. Someone I know, I'm not invited me to come to their bachelorette party for the weekend and to do a sex education talk because God bless them, they're all like virgin 20-year-olds. So
Wow.
it was so much fun. But some of them we talked about some like basic sex stuff, but we also kind of went into like libido killers and the effects of birth control. And I actually did steal your screenshot from your talk with your graph with the hormones because it was the
Oh
best
yeah,
one I could
that's
find. I
everybody.
tried so many to find so many different ones. It was like, this is from my friend Jen. You need to take her class. That was my shout out. But explaining like the hormones to the best of my ability, I was like, just learn from her. She's the best. But it came that the bride is starting birth control, and she started birth control and an over-the-counter birth control, which I didn't even realize you could just go to the pharmacy and get an over-the-counter birth control pill.
I haven't heard that.
It's called the O pill. She started at day 1 of her period, and then so she had a 5-day period bleed, and then she stopped for a couple of days, but then she's been bleeding for 2 weeks since, and like really heavy bleeding. And I'm like, sister, I don't think this is for you. And so, like the birth control pill and understanding that and how it's so many people are on it, and she didn't even realize it was even considered a medication, and just the effects of how it has on the hormones. And like, can you maybe explain a little bit of your understanding of the pill and how it works and maybe some side effects and your thoughts on that? I'm sure you
I
have
mean,
a
I do. I'll try and keep it brief. I mean, there's many different types of birth control, first of all, and you will hear a lot of professional OBGYNs say there's a time and a place for it. And that one always confuses me because I'll hear them say, I'm not for it. And they'll talk about all the negatives of them, but then they'll say, but there's a time and a place for them. And I'm Like, what? Like, I guess maybe. I don't think so. So birth controls are considered a class. They're considered carcinogens, cancer causing. Depending on the type of birth control, whether it's pill, IUD, all those kind of things. They all do different things. So a lot of them though are very high estrogen, and that's part of the cancer causing. Now, estrogen, I need to clarify, estrogen does not cause cancer. However, when it is unopposed without progesterone, that's when it can lead into some of those issues. So, what happens with the pill, and I'm just talking generically, many of them have different mechanisms, but what happens is the amount of hormone the female is getting will suppress FSH. So, kind of think back to my explanation earlier of what hormones are dominoing into the next. So FSH starts. So it suppresses FSH. If FSH is suppressed, no follicles will grow. And if no follicles grow, then no estrogen is, being released. So the estrogen she's getting is all synthetic estrogen as well. It's not the bioidentical. So no estrogen is released. If no estrogen is released, no LH spike happens. If no LH spike happens, no ovulation happens. If no ovulation happens, no progesterone is made. And that's another reason why a lot of women on birth control get depression and anxiety as well, is because, again, those natural hormonal fluctuations are not happening, the ones that help with our brain. So that's the number one thing. The next thing is it is extremely nutrient depleting. So a couple clients I've had that decided to stay on birth control, irregardless of everything I've mentioned, when we did check their lab works, they were extremely low in folate and B12, all their B vitamins and zinc and all their basic minerals. It steals, it's robbing from you as a woman and not letting you thrive. All for what purpose? Some women it's to avoid getting pregnant. Some women which there are many ways out there that you don't need to mess your body up for that. Some women it's, oh, I have PCOS or acne, so my doctor put this on. Again, that's not getting at the root cause. When I ask women, if you're going on birth control for any of these reasons, what's your plan on getting off? Especially if you plan on having kids in the future, because the longer you're on it, the longer the issues will stay and get worse because they're boiling underneath. And a lot of times it might be as simple as changing something in your diet and getting rid of some inflammatory foods. Sometimes it's as simple as doing a gut test and looking at the microbiome balance, and they wouldn't have to suffer for all these years with that. The last one, I mean, there's many more I could get into, but the other one that really grinds my gears. Women are on birth control. The natural pheromones that get emitted from their body to attract their mate is suppressed. So yeah, have you not heard of this?
That's a new one to me.
Okay, I'll dive in a little more. So there's been studies done with these kind of situations, but what happens is, when a woman's not on pheromones, a guy's he doesn't realize it's the smell, but he's attracted to that smell, and that's part of their like coming together. There have been studies done with women who are on birth control and then get off of birth control once they're married. And then the attraction starts lessening because he's not recognizing that pheromone, or it's a pheromone that he didn't have before. And obviously that's one of those studies where it's like, can you prove that it's definitely it or not? But
there's definitely correlation.
Yes, there's definitely correlation. So that's one thing. And that, then you tend to wonder, how often does the cheating happen because of that? And divorces and such. So that's a real heartbreak on the gift of the family, our faith in our lives. So yes, the attraction changes depending on that.
So I heard that like when you're on the pill, it changes like whom she thinks is attractive, but I never knew that it could potentially change, the male's attraction to the female.
More so the male to the female. Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
Brand new information.
Yeah, that's crazy. And another thing that I've noticed, and this is not me trying to be judgmental, this is me just observing. I'm a huge observer, is I notice more women on birth control tend to dress a little more immodestly, trying to gain that attention. And I don't think it's attention seeking per se. I think it's more the pheromones are suppressed. And so how else are they going to attract a mate but reveal their bodies, right? Most women who I know are not on birth control tend not to do that. And there again, that could be correlation, it could be morals, it could be values as well. But it's just an interesting observation, I feel like. So take it with a grain of salt if needed.
I mean, body longs to be noticed, I mean, there's a reason why like you emit pheromones. So if your body's not emitting your pheromones, your body's gonna your innate wisdom's gonna scream in a different way. It's like,
Yeah,
so that would
exactly.
make sense. Yeah.
Totally.
Wow, wild. So what instead of birth control, if somebody's wanting to go off of birth control, what are some things that they need to take into consideration?
Yeah, so they would have to do something called a post birth control syndrome protocol. Obviously, I can't give the whole details of that, but the generics is we want to look at their liver health, we want to look at their gut health, and we want to restore what has been destroyed. We want to replete, so we want to give them again the vitamins that have been depleted. We put them on a good quality B complex, maybe some NAC and inositol to help with detoxification of estrogen. So we want to focus on that estrogen detoxification pathways, some quality probiotics most likely, things like that. So there's a number of things. That's what we would want to look at.
So there is a
And then,
protocol to like that
yes.
really is needed when you come off. You can't just stop taking it.
I mean, you could, but you're going to start feeling crummy. You're going to start getting, if it's someone that's gone on it for PCOS or acne and hasn't done anything to fix that, they're going to get the symptoms back. So that's part of the whole thing with the protocol is, yeah, you want to check those nutrient status, check the minerals, make sure you're getting all that, and then support that detox, but then also get to the root cause of why you were on it, if it was a medical condition.
In the first place. Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't know if you know any stats or not, but really, which is the most effective family or pregnancy preventer? Is it birth control, condoms? Is it the family planning method that you teach? Like, what is the safest way to go about preventing pregnancy?
Yeah, so most statistics given by the CDC use what's called, or here, I'm going to pull
Your
out yeah, the user error is not what they use. That's what I use. But I have the answers to your question right here. I mean, I won't read all of them, but it was called the mechanism, something like that. Okay. So CDC in their statistics mainly uses something, the name is something along the line of mechanism. So if you were to use it perfectly, how you're supposed to use it all the time, 100% of the time, those are the statistics they use. But we all know that's not reality. We know that their education plays a role, age plays a role, manufacturing issues play a role, forgetfulness, busyness, sickness, all kinds of things. So when you look at user error, a lot of times barrier methods such as condoms and diaphragms, it's in the heat of the moment. And therefore, a lot of times are not put on correctly. Sometimes there can be holes in them. So there's all those kind of things. If they've carried it in their wallet for 2 years and then finally use it, whatever it is.
poor guy.
Yeah, so that's a big one as far as that. And then the birth control pill, that's has to be done religiously if you're taking it the same exact time every single day. If you miss a day or take it later, that messes things up as well. So the percentage that I have seen is natural family planning, certain fertility awareness-based methods tend to rank higher in the user margin where there's errors and such because it becomes, and this is actually my hypothesis. When you do NFP, when you learn to track your cycle, it is something you are doing every single day throughout the day. So not just, oh, I need to wake up at 7 a.m. and take my pill. It is throughout the day. Every time you go to the bathroom, you're checking and it just becomes routine, like going to the bathroom or brushing your teeth or eating. So it just becomes part of who she is, being in tune with herself. And then the other aspect is, so it becomes part of herself. And then you're learning the window of fertility. You can't get pregnant all 28 days, all 40 days, whatever it is. It's a small window. And so you're learning and understanding how pregnancy actually occurs. How does conception occur? And if the woman doesn't have fertile mucus, she can't get pregnant. Like that one blows most women's mind. Wait, so even if I'm ovulating, like maybe she has a tiny bit of mucus, all that kind of stuff. So it's really,
Factors are
I,
just incredible.
yeah, they are. I mean, the fact when you learn about this and you realize how much it takes to make a baby, like it is just
Truly a
wild.
miracle. Yeah.
It really is. The egg is you can only fertilize the egg for 24 hours. That's it.
Just
Out of the whole month, out of the whole time, 24 hours window to conceive. And then you need cervical mucus for the sperm to survive. The cervical mucus helps the sperm reach the point of conception. And so there's a lot of factors that come into play for that to happen. So yeah, so what I have seen is it's better. The other aspect for NFP methods is how it brings the couples together. And some people might think it's opposite because of the period of abstinence. However, it helps the man to truly understand the woman's body, and he starts understanding her better. So when my husband and I started doing this 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, we did the symptothermal method. So I would be taking my basal body temperature every morning. And what I did to incorporate him was I had my paper chart on the dresser. And after I took my temperature, I didn't even look at it. I would just put it on the chart, and it was his job to record the temperature. And it was my job to record the sensation and the cervical mucus. So we were doing this together. And I think that's a beautiful part of it that can enhance marriages, is when you have both spouses and it's not just on the female, right?
No, so when you were first talking about like the family planning method really depends a lot on the woman, and it's kind of a daily, it's not just a pill in the morning and one and done thing. You really are tracking your body through the day. And to be honest, when I first started working with you, when you said that to me and I learned that, I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot add one more thing to my plate. I cannot, this is an all day event for the next 3-6 months, however long I work with you. And I mean, that was my inner like pushback. Okay. Am I honest?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. But it was so easy. And I was surprised at how easy it was. And I was surprised at how quick I started recognizing and noticing things about my body. Like, I didn't really, after the first like month, it's kind of like driving a car, when you first start driving a car, you're like, I don't know, you'll learn this when you teach your son how to drive, but like, I've just been reminded by teaching 2 teenagers, and they're like every little movement, every moment, you're constantly hyper aware of all of it, and kind of paranoid of every movement you make and everything that you do. But as you get in and you just keep driving, it just becomes second nature, and you
Yeah.
can almost go from like point A to point B, and you don't even realize where you were, that driving dissociative mindset. And it kind of became that way. Like I mean, not that I was paying attention, but it just became so easy and so natural. And it really helped me understand a lot of my body, and just reasons why weeks I was like feeling very enthusiastic and excited to start things, and why there are weeks where I was like, I can't believe I agreed to do that, and I just want to hide under the covers. That it was part of just my cycle, and that was, the way that it was. But it
Yeah.
became very natural and very easy. So yeah, for anyone who's listening, who's thinking, oh my gosh, I have to work at learning my body, once you learn it's like so easy. It's just so easy.
It is. It just becomes second nature, like
Nature,
you
yeah.
said.
Mhm.
It's not an issue. And yeah, it's interesting, the symptom correlation part, or causation, whatever way you want to look at it, as far as our cycle. So for myself, I'm entering the perimenopausal stage. And during perimenopause, our hormones, one cycle might be normal, the next cycle might be wonky, and then it might go back to normal, and it's just all over the place. So one of the things that can happen often in perimenopause is histamine intolerance. If there's been a histamine buildup over the years, when estrogen rises, it causes histamine to rise. And then when histamine rises, that causes estrogen to rise. So that can cause it to continually go up and up. And I can intuitively tell now when my estrogen is rising according to my histamine symptoms.
So
And
what are
so
your histamine symptoms then? What is a histamine symptom?
it can be different for every person. So for myself, it is more like nasal congestion, ear block. The one that women will talk about, I've never heard before, where it's like your ears get itchy, but that's because of the sinus cavity like
It's all
draining
connected.
towards. Yeah, it's all connected. So that's been my thing. Sometimes there's a little like lethargy, tiredness, brain fog. But that's when you're able to track your cycle, and you can see those symptoms and realize, oh, I know this symptom I learned recently is usually caused by not enough progesterone, or too much estrogen, or some imbalance, or whatever it is. So I love that. And then we start kind of dissecting our periods and starting to see that as the fifth vital sign. Well, the whole cycle is, but looking at our periods and seeing, having a 2-day period is not normal. That means something else is going on, or I'm not having a heavy day, or I'm having too much heavy day. and learning what the objective markers are for that. Because I am guilty of this. I thought I was having heavy days. And then when I learned the actual measurement of what heavy is, I said, oh no, mine have been medium. It's been fine. So really just, I love how much this empowers women in understanding their bodies and not having to go through the conventional medicine doctor who often doesn't really know as much.
And then once you learn your cycle and you realize there are some irregularities or abnormalities, I'm assuming there's always hope, and there's things that you can do to adjust and rebalance and recalibrate your cycle, correct? So you're not
Yes.
just stuck. So you're like, oh, I just have low progesterone. That's just my leg.
No, right. Exactly. Because then let's take that one since you mentioned it. If the person realizes, oh, I have low progesterone, my luteal phase is too short, and, my basal body temperature is not rising as high, that's not mandatory to check in natural family planning, but it can be a helpful tool. So you start noticing these things, and then sure enough, you get your blood work checked and it's low. Well, we know that progesterone is released after ovulation. So we know something's happening at the ovulatory event that's not creating the corpus luteum properly in order to make the progesterone. So then we can look at that and we can dissect that. Are you getting an LH surge? You can measure LH easily at home with cheap pee sticks.
Oh, yeah.
So then checking the LH, are you getting the LH surge? Are you not getting it? Oh, okay. Now let's go back further. So you get to see exactly what's happening. When you go to doctors' offices, particularly OBGYNs, there are some out there I advocate for that are really good, but majority of them will just say, okay, let's get, when I tried finding a new one, this happened to me and I was so frustrated. And they said, okay, we'll get your blood work done today. And I said, don't you care where I am in my cycle? And she said, no, it doesn't matter. I'm like, but you don't make progesterone in the follicular phase. And it's happened, so like you have leftover from the previous cycle, but you're not making it, so it's going to be on the lower end. And you want to know if you're actually ovulating, if you're producing. So it's just so. And then there's the other camp that says, oh, just go to the blood lab between days 19 and 22. But if you're somebody who's not ovulating till day 17 or 18, that's not going to tell you anything. You have to wait longer. You have to be mid-luteal phase. So this is where having your own education about all of this is really helpful. And my doctors, the doctor I had that told me to go days 19 to 22, and I said, today's day 17, and I know I'm ovulating today, so can I wait longer? And he was like, sure, if you want to, but I know, and he gets his own, like, I know it's supposed to be, but it doesn't matter. You get the blood work done, and then you tell them where you were, and they figure it out.
So some of the things that I think is surprising when I talk to my daughter and her friends and my girls, that having a lot of uncomfortable symptoms around a period it's not normal. But our culture has so normalized it. Like, it's just so common that it's almost like if you don't get a migraine, or you don't have massive cramps, or you don't like have a fever or body aches, if you're not grabbing Midol or ibuprofen when you're on your period, like something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
So my question basically is it healthy to have those symptoms? No. So what are the healthy symptoms of a period?
Yeah. So let me say real quick, I love that you brought this up, that our society is equating common with normal. And it is not the same. They're completely different things. Just because something's common does not mean it's normal. During the Black Plague, it was common for many negative things to be happening, but it doesn't mean it's normal, right? But it's just so like, oh, as we get old, we get heart disease, we get osteoporosis. That's just normal. And that one's the one that really gets me too. Cause like seeing my mom get older, and my dad recently passed away, and my in-laws getting sick. It's like, no, it doesn't have to be this way. Yeah. It's a result of our poor food system and our poor environment and the chemicals that we're constantly exposed to. So I just want to say that because that's one topic I get fired up on is but what's a normal period? It is literally just when you're tracked. That's another cool part of tracking, is you can detect when your period's coming, because when you ovulate, your luteal phase, every female's luteal phase is approximately the same, give or take a day. So when you determine approximately what day is ovulation, what your peak day is the terminology we use. Like my luteal phase is typically 14 days. Some women, it's typically 10 days. Some typically is 15 days. You can more accurately predict your next period that way. So I'm 14 days post peak. My period's going to come within the next day or two, and you can prepare better. Like as a woman, you're traveling, you're hiking, whatever it is. Like, oh, I got my period early. Well, maybe not necessarily, or it didn't come, it's late. Not necessarily. Depends when you ovulate. So number one is you just start bleeding on that day post peak that you normally bleed on. It should literally just be like any other day, except you're wearing stuff to catch your bleed. Whatever it is, a cup, a tampon, a pad, whatever floats your boat. It should just be like any other day. Now, there are other things I teach in the hormone coaching as far as how you treat your body during that time. You're going to do more self-care. You're going to make sure you eat more iron-rich foods because you're losing blood, more B vitamins. So red meat is a really good one for that time. You want to take it easy with your workouts. You don't want to go hard in CrossFit. You kind of want to be a little more gentle on yourself, but you don't have to sit on your butt all day either. You can still work out. You just want to not push it to the max. So, but otherwise there should not be any symptoms. There should not be cramping. There should not be mitral grabbing. There should not be
cramping is not considered a healthy symptom of a period.
If it's cramping to the point of grabbing ibuprofen, no. If it's, I noticed a little bit something there, almost like if you ate something that was wrong and it's like a little bit of gas and you're like, okay, like that's okay. But it shouldn't be so debilitating that you can't get up from bed and you're grabbing prescription medication or ibuprofen. I haven't taken ibuprofen for cramps, I think, since I've started this, 7 or 8 years. And I used to take strong prescription medication from my OBGYN, and that didn't even touch it. Like, wow. I had to take that medication the day I was expecting my period for it to work. As soon as I noticed a little bit of blood, I had to take it. If I waited longer and then I took it, it wouldn't work.
But no, the period cramps are not a healthy symptom. They're an abnormal symptom.
Yeah, so just having like twinges, like noticing that is completely normal. I mean, you're shedding an organ, essentially, your endometrial lining. So just noticing it, but it shouldn't change your life. You shouldn't. No. And ibuprofen, that's a whole nother ballgame. That should be used very sparingly with the way it affects the body.
Yeah. That's a whole nother topic of discussion.
Yeah. There's a lot of them.
There's a ton of them. Oh my goodness. I have so many more questions for you, but I don't want to keep you all day. So knowing everything that you know now, everything that you've learned and all the wisdom that you've gained, if you could go back to your 16-year-old self and tell her one thing, what would it be?
Considering 16, and that was a really strong time, I would help her understand how food affects her body 100%. I mean, I was downing all the sodas. I was invincible. I thought it was invincible. Just having all the junk food, snacking all the time, no protein, so the biggest thing I would want her to know is what foods were actually good for her and that she is created in the image of God and that things will get better. Just have to work. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Rebecca, thanks for having me on.
Welcome. Is there anything else you'd like to add or say, or are you running any clinics or group coaching or?
So yeah, people can follow me on Instagram, Coach Jen Winkler, Jen with one N. And then also I'm actually full with my one-on-ones right now. And I'm trying to figure out a plan for the coach grouping in the future. I do want to continue teaching femme and helping girls learn the natural family planning. I'm just trying to figure out what that will practically look like, if it's group coaching, etc. But if I do, it'll probably launch in the fall.
Cool. Okay, I'll keep you posted. Thank you. I really hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Jen. She's become such a great friend and even a mentor to me in some ways, as I have been trying to learn more about hormones and even getting some advice as a confidant with some other client issues that she just excels in. She's just amazing. She's a wealth of information. So I will put all of her contact details in the show notes. You can follow her on Instagram. She's got a brand new podcast out with a friend that is hot. I mean, I think it's called hard takes, hard truths, something like that. I can't remember. I'll put it below. But it's like really, really good. I've listened to almost every episode. She's killing it on the podcast. And then also, if you have been enjoying this podcast series so far, Liberty Wellness with me, Rebecca Stewart, I would be so grateful if you could give me a like, a subscribe, follow, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. And then follow me on Instagram too. Find me at Liberty Wellness & Co. because I would love to engage with you and get to know you better. Thank you for listening. Liberty Wellness Podcast is for informational purposes only and for your entertainment. Information presented on this podcast is not intended to replace any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And while I am a healthcare provider, I'm not your provider. So always seek the advice of an appropriate healthcare practitioner with any personal questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this podcast. Reliance on information by this podcast is at your own risk.